So thank you, Philip, and thank you, Liedewij, for putting this beautiful forum together. I'm really excited that we're part with the Linen Project of so many beautiful and inspiring speakers. So thank you for that. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to present from our website, which has been recently updated. So I thought it's called the Linen Project Online. So we started the Linen Project, just to be sure. It's a large community of people who are the Linen Project. We started and initiated the project together with Willemien Ipel from the Crafts Council Nederland, and we started in 2018. And it's really based on learning by doing, just like Reina said in the previous presentation, which was beautiful, by the way. There also was very little knowledge left about the cultivation of flax and the production of linen fiber in the Netherlands. This all started the Linen Project as well with Friends of Light that Liedewij referred to so beautifully in her presentation, which is a small worker cooperative that we founded in upstate New York. And I started working there very directly with farmers and with sheep, in that case with wool. And it was so amazing to me. I remember being at the farm and working on the yarns together with Sarah, the farmer that we were working with. And I remember thinking, if I don't know this process, I can have all kinds of ideas about the world, but they don't mean anything. So for me, that was really important, the connection with the soil, with the farming, with at that point, the animals, now the plants. So when I came back to the Netherlands in 2018 to start a new master program at Artes called Practice Held in Common, I very quickly connected with the Crafts Council, and also Willemien had a big desire to work with flax and with linen. So that's how the Linen Project started. We started in the Open Air Museum, which was our first field. It was really learning how to grow and cultivate flax again. So this was the first field we had. This is a small video, which I won't completely play. The nice thing about the Open Air Museum is that it's really educational. So when we do a harvest there, we still work with the Open Air Museum as one of the locations where we grow flax. And it's where we can tell the story, and it's where people really get engaged in the activities like harvesting, for instance. In 2019, we had the desire to grow a bigger field of flax, and we wanted to grow with farmers, because we also really want to contribute to farming and to being part.
Pascale, sorry to interrupt you. The volume has gone down. Is there something on the microphone, or is it at full volume?
It's at full volume. Is it better like this?
It's gone away. We can hear you very faintly.
And still, Philip, still very faintly?
A bit better. Is the volume up?
I'll put the computer very close. I don't know how it...
It was good in the beginning, so I don't know what happened.
Maybe the video altered it, says Cynthia.
Maybe I'll share again and see what happens. Sorry about that.
Maybe Pascale, log out of the Zoom and log back in. Should we try that?
Can you hear me better now?
A little bit.
But not really.
Not as great as at the beginning.
So I'll log out then.
Let's try that.
Okay. Thank you, Phil.
So just bear with us. We're going to try logging Pascale back in so she can continue.
If not, she can also work on my computer, but then she has to bring back her website.
Let's see, where is she? I think she's back. Yeah.
Can you hear me now, Philip? Is it better?
It's sort of medium.
Oh my God. I don't know what it is.
Is maybe the
Let me try one thing, Philip. I'm going to disconnect my camera for a second. Is this better? Do you have better sound now?
it is better actually, yeah.
So I'll present without my camera then.
Okay.
Yeah?
All right. So
Yeah, I'll come back after. Yeah?
yeah, so just go back to sharing the screen and then we should be fine. Sorry about this.
Not this one. So this is the linen project again. So in 2019, is it better, Philip? Do you hear me better?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. So this is again and I wanted to talk a little bit about the material processes that are involved with growing flax and then eventually spinning it into linen. So here they are preparing the field. People can also visit the website and there's all the texts are in English. The sewing goes very precisely. So the seeds are measured very precisely so that there's the same amount in every square meter on the field. We acquired this small harrowing machine, which does the weeding in the beginning. So it kind of pulls out the little plants in between the rows of the flax. And the flax is sewn about 12.5 centimeters apart. Since we do everything organically, we have to weed by hand afterwards. And this is the field at the Open Air Museum, a very small field. It's about 0.1 acre. And it's mostly for demonstration and participation purposes. And these are 3 old flax varieties that are actually the mothers of the varieties that we're using now. This is when the flax is ready to harvest. The seed balls are ripened and the leaves have fallen off the stem almost. And then there's a lot of fun harvesting, rippling, and dew redding on the field, but we'll come back to these processes later. This is a project from an alumni from Practice Held in Common, the program. He grew a field at the Open Air Museum as well. They're very open to working with the participants as well. And he grew a field in the size and the form of a t-shirt. And this is the amount of flax that you need to make one t-shirt. So Taka has been harvesting the field, farming the field for 100 days. So flax traditionally is sown in around the 100th day after the 1st of January. Then it grows for 100 days and then it's harvested. And we have found that that's generally true. It's like 103 days, sometimes 105 days. So we can pretty much calculate near the same process again, harvesting the t-shirt. Then we had 2 fields, one in a small biodynamic farm. Traditionally, flax is grown in the north of Holland, in Friesland and in Zeeland. But actually every farm in the Netherlands used to grow flax because it was part of the winter work that would be done. A lot of families used to have a linen closet, which held the dowry for the daughter in the house. This is preparation of the soil. Yeah? And here we are weeding again. This is a larger field. And the Horsthof, we did everything by hand. So that was, we worked with a lot of volunteers, friends. The harvest growing. And here we had a harvest. And we thought we were going to harvest the field in one day. It took us 4 days and nights to harvest the field. So it was much more labor intensive than we imagined. The turning of the flax. And we rolled everything by hand. And this is the biggest field that we grew. And that was on a biodynamic farm as well, in the Lingerhof in Hemmen. It's on clay soil. The soil is very important. Biodynamic farming also means that there is a rotation of crops. And flax is a really good crop to have in the crop rotation because it's kind of like a resting crop. And the root structure of the flax plant is as such that it brings CO2 back into the soil. Here again as well, it's a measuring of the seeds and the amounts of seed that go into the soil. The earth is really important, of course. This is a much bigger harrowing machine. And then the hand weeding starts when the machine can no longer go on the field. And that really required us to really reach out on social media and get as much hands as possible. So a lot of volunteers worked with us in that first year. And this is the weeding machine. And you see it here in the back as well. And then at one point, the flax is too long, it will be damaged, so we can no longer weed. Then it just grows. So this is day 54 of the 100 days of growing. Every flower only blossoms once. And then, of course, they blossom in different periods. This field was with the support of Vanderbilt, Sade and Vlas, which is one of the only companies, I think, in the world, because even in the US, they are referring back to Vanderbilt. They still create new varieties. So they sell flax. They have fields themselves, large fields. And in 2020, they grew for the first time also biological flax. They also have a biological seed variety now, which we used this year. And they send over a small harvesting machine to help us with, because it would have been way too big to harvest it by hand. So it's retting on the soil, and that's a very important process, but I'll speak about that more a bit later, the turning of the flax, so that it rets equally on both sides. And this is and here it's built as well by Vanderbilt, and then it goes to their facility. So I'm closing this for a moment. I'm going to share the PowerPoint. So learning by doing is really important to us because that's how we do learn, by just doing it. And we have learned so much about the cultivation of flax. We also have had cultivation support by 2 farmers. So we had a lot of volunteers who worked with us in 2019, and family and friends. And we had an app kind of going. We did harvest events, one on in the Horsthof, where we did everything by hand. We had a harvest event there with food and everything. But that kind of resulted in the shared stewardship because we didn't feel completely at ease with having so many people work and not kind of benefit from the work that they do. So we created the Shared Stewardship initiative, which was run for the first time in 2020. And Shared Stewardship kind of refers to taking care of the cultivation of the flax together and also of all the processes that are involved. So we invited people to commit themselves for 1 year to cultivate the flax, but also to share in the processing of the flax together. And the idea was that everyone would make a garment for themselves. This is a little film that I would love to share.
Sinds dit jaar zijn er 30 stewards die zich aan de Linen Project hebben verbonden om gezamenlijk een veld vlas te verbouwen. Samen doorlopen zij het hele proces om daarmee hun eigen vlas en linnenproducten te kunnen ontwikkelen.
Ik had vooral zin om mijn handen in de aarde te steken. gewoon handen in de aarde en vies worden en op het land werken. En alle leuke nieuwe woorden die je daarbij leert, zoals kriebel-eg en onkruiddruk en hekelen, braken, swingelen.
Nou, ik ben mee gaan doen met het linnenproject omdat ik eigenlijk meer van landbouw wilde weten. Ik heb een project dat heet Made to Mend. En ik heb daarvoor een tweed ontwikkeld die ultiem reparabel is. En ik wil heel graag daar een nieuwe stof aan toevoegen en van linnen.
Ik denk wat het heel rijk maakt is de mensen met wie je zit. Met 30 verschillende mensen, met allemaal een andere achtergrond. En nou ja, ik wist wel, maar toch wel verbaasd dat het ontzettend arbeidsintensief is. En dat je eigenlijk heel veel handelingen moet doen. Dat je uiteindelijk tot dat stuk komt, tot die stof of wat dan ook, of kledingstuk wat het wordt.
Ja, ik werk als modeontwerper. En ik heb zelf gemerkt in mijn beroepspraktijk dat ik wel heel veel weet van kleding, het maken van kleding en ook van textiel. Ik heb elke dag textiel vast. Alleen, ik weet eigenlijk voordat iets textiel wordt niet heel erg goed hoe dat proces nou gaat. En ik wil heel graag zien hoe die plant zich verhoudt tot het textiel. Hoe die valling nou is als je ook het plantje in je handen hebt gehad. Of dat ik dan het textiel beter snap, omdat ik ook dus de vlasplant vast heb gehad. Of dat het anders is dan dat ik normaal met linnen werk.
Ik vind een soort pessimisme dat ik vaak tegenkom in de modeopleiding, maar ook in mensen die ik spreek uit de mode-industrie over de stand van zaken, vind ik heel, maakt me heel droef. Maar ik zie hier een groep mensen die om dezelfde dingen geeft, maar juist vanuit een liefde voor het materiaal op zoek gaat naar een andere manier. Dat heeft mij heel erg geïnspireerd.
Vroeger was dus linnen ook gewoon meer waard dan goud. Iemand die uitgehuwelijkd werd, kreeg dat mee als bruidsschat. Zoveel was het waard. Dat je dus ook zoiets eigenlijk voor het leven meedraagt. Dat je een kledingstuk ook daarop weer kan waarderen. Op iets wat je voor het leven hebt, wat je kan repareren, weer kan maken. En daardoor helemaal weer eigen wordt.
Ja, ik kom echt uit die commerciële industrie. Dus voor mij is alles heel ver weg, massaal, lage prijzen. En je weet eigenlijk helemaal niks van hoe grondstoffen eigenlijk nou daadwerkelijk verbouwd worden. Dus dit vond ik een hele mooie kans om eigenlijk de hele supply chain, om het heel mooi te zeggen, om die even helemaal te zien en de verwerking van zaadje tot kledingstuk. Maar nu ervaar je dat echt aan mijn lijve. En dat is voor mij echt een enorme eye-opener. Eigenlijk zou je zeggen van je zou dit soort dingen iedereen gunnen. Dat ze het gewoon weten. En misschien dat we dan ook een betere, mooiere, schonere en meer fair productieketen krijgen.
So here we are with the stewards. And this year, in 2021, we did everything by hand, also the sewing with traditional old sewing machines. The harvest happens by hand. And this is when so we had two very different seasons. In 2019, we had a really good season. That was the season when we grew a bigger place at 2 farms. Here we have a smaller field with the stewards in 2020, but it was so dry. It was such a dry season in 2020, the summer, that actually the plant didn't develop really well. And 80% of the flax production cultivation in Europe failed. So it was really damaging a lot of farmers. And this is 2020. And then we moved to 2021, which was the past season. And it was way too wet. So again, the farmers, for us, of course, it's not so, we're just learning. So the flax fell down because of the amount of rain that just kept pouring last year. So that's a big risk. And a farmer that we work with in Zeeland, he still farms like 300 acres. And it's so despairing for him because 2 years in a row, he couldn't really get in the flax. And we also hear that now that the flax prices are twice as much as concerned with, that also because there was so much rain, there was so much weeds that still came up later after we could have. So for some plant growth, it was really good, a lot of rain, but for the flax and a lot of other plants, it wasn't that good. This was the harvest, which was kind of sad in the wet. We had to stop because it was too wet to put the flax on the wet ground. We actually had really good flax this year of that season. Because it grew really well, we could put the flax up again by hand because we had a really small field. But if you grow 300 acres, that's impossible to do. So it's a really big risk as well for farmers. And that's something that we also want to make people very aware of. So the dew retting is a very precarious process. So the flax is on the land. You see that the top is already a bit brown. The underneath is still green, and then it gets turned so that both sides can ret evenly. So it's a kind of rotting process in which about 20 bacteria and different kind of microbes are working to break the pectin. The inside the stem, there's a wood inside and the fibers are around it. And if it lays too long on the field, and here, if it lays too long on the field, the fiber also breaks down. So it's about just having the right of mind. And this is how we check whether it's right or not.
This is de first rij, eerste rij, eerste rij, en dit is de dag erna, laatste rij van.
Yeah. There was a discussion between two of the stewards, and the field, because it was so wet, it grew very unevenly. So some parts were already ready to kind of be taken off of the field, and the other one was not ready yet to be taken off. This is how we take it off the field. And then it dries a little bit more in these sheaves, and then we bring it in. And with the stewards, we do everything by hand. And this is the rippling. That's the first process that happens. And it's taking off the seed pods at the top, which can be used for the cultivation next year. And this is what it looks like in a big bag. And it needs to be bruised now so that the seeds can come out. This is the breaking of the flax. So the stem is broken so that the wood can come out. And this is Hans who's doing it on the breaking roll. We inherited a few old machines from an old flax farmer, which we are very grateful for. So we have two of those rolls, which makes the process a bit easier. So the rolls break the wood stem, and then the fiber is kind of left. The next process is to beat the wood from the fiber, and then the fiber is going to be combed. And that's then going to be the fiber that we use to spin. And you saw already that we did a spinning workshop in the video that I shared. This is Hans Hutting's studio, and he's become very fluent with spinning. This is some of the spun yarn. We knew that the harvest wasn't so good in 2020. The fiber is very brittle because it couldn't develop well. It was very dry when it was just sown in. For a month, it was very dry. So the development of the fiber didn't develop well. It's brittle and it was short fibers, but we have been able to work with it. And it caused a lot of the stewards to do very interesting experiment with the fiber, because it was not like, this is Hans who made some, he combined ceramics with the fiber. There's Maaike, one other stewards. This is, she wove this with the 2019 flax because we had it spun, but I'll speak about that in a little bit. And here she's working, she's making pin pillows with the different type of, the different varieties from the different years that she spun herself. And she filled it also with leftover material. And here she's weaving with the different years as well. And she constantly tells me about the deep connection that she feels with the material, especially by working with it and growing the plants and spinning it herself and feeling the different qualities of the different years. This year, 2021, is a really beautiful, strong fiber. Marike and Loes, they made paper together. Loes Schepers is a paper maker. And Marike made paper yarn from the Flax of 2020. And here there are different samples. And she also started doing three-dimensional shapes. And she uses the flax seeds, which is traditionally used to make a little pasta, which you use for the spinning so that the spinning becomes more smooth. And that also stiffens. So she uses that for her different experiments, which are beautiful. And here also the different qualities of the flax, the shorter fibers and the longer fibers. We started a collective garment. This is a garment with the different trials on top of it. And here's the weaving, and we all work on these pieces collectively until it becomes a jacket. Helene Klopper worked together with Sjaak Hullekes and Sebastian Kramer on this vest. And also, again, this was inspired by the bad fiber or the differently composed fiber of 2020. This is woven by Eva Clay in Amsterdam from the fiber and the yarn that was produced in 2019. On top is the fiber from 2020. And then on top of this comes the wool, which is wet felted. And then it turns into this jacket. So the linen project is the Linen Stewards, but it's also, we do other types of projects as well. The Linen Stewards is really an autonomous group of about 30 people. And the Linen Stewards decide together, and they kind of, are an autonomous group with in connection to the Linen Project. But with the Linen Project, we are also, we will grow 5 acres of flax the coming year. And we are now in the process of linen kavels, and in partnership with Enschede's Textielstad, which is Annemieke, who has kind of re-established a weaving mill in Enschede in the east of Holland. And she is weaving the linen at the moment. And I'm going to show you a bit of that process quickly, I think. So this is the flax that went to Vanderbilt. They process it with the machines into the flax fiber. This is the fiber of 2019 here. The only mill, the closest mill to it left to us is in Poland. And I had a personal connection, so I could go there. It's a very elaborate process to spin the flax. This is a mix of different flax, and it goes into this machine, and it comes out as one. It comes out as one, and then it goes back into that same process again. So over and over, the fiber gets stretched, gets elongated. And this is I thought this was very beautiful. This is at Linificio in Italy. Here they select the finest of the fibers, so the finest flax fibers, they get selected by hand. There's 2 women in the factory that can feel it and that have that knowledge in their body. And they So they line up the fiber by hand. And this is for fiber that's more than 100 nm. I don't know how that translates to English, but it's a very fine yarn, for the finest yarns that they use for shirting and for some bedwear. And this is a spinning. This is how the spinning happens. And we got back our own flax and we were so excited because the spinning factory, we had asked them to stop their regular production and to only spin what we had grown. Normally, a lot of years and a lot of different fields get mixed together so that they can guarantee kind of a unified quality. But because we had grown it organically, biodynamically, we really wanted it to be as pure as possible. So they agreed, and it's just amazingly beautiful. The first yards were woven by Annemiek, and we did a co-design process with our farmer, André in Hemmen, the Lingenhof. And he's very excited. He wears it almost every day. So he kind of designed his own workwear. And now, because the previous fabric was still woven on their on the warp that was already on the machine, because it's very expensive to change the warp. But now last week, we got very beautiful images of how their warp from the machine was cut, and the linen from 2019 was tied onto the machine. So this is the first fabric, and I don't know how many years, that's grown on Dutch soil and woven on Dutch soil. So we're very proud of that. We're also working with Lineficio in Italy, this is Giorgio, to develop a small-scale spinning facility for flax and hemp. And we hope to bring that to the Netherlands so that we can really close the loop here and have people participate and understand all these processes so that they really feel that connection and want to spend more, maybe more. Or, yeah. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening and participating.
Thank you, Pascale.
Pascale, fantastic.
I have to unshare, right? Yeah. Stop sharing.
It's like, it looks like silk, that yarn. Huh?
I have to start the video, as I said. Am I back? No.
Not yet.
Not yet. Now you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, the yarn is amazing. Because hand weavers have already been weaving with it, and they don't want to use anything else anymore because it's not mixed. So normally they do use the yarn. It's like with wine. The flax years are like wine. So you have good years, you have bad years, and normally they mix them together to get that constant quality.
Yeah.
But this is the pure.
This is how it can be.
It can be.
Yeah. And so the products you're going to make, it's for everybody in themselves, or are you going to do some collection, or? No,
we're really looking for people who want to work with the material that is being woven now. So we look for companies, small companies that have the same values, and we already are in connection with quite a few here in the Netherlands. Companies that are really committed to bringing local value chains back to
right.
in this case in the Netherlands.
Well, we come with our students to see you guys.
You can always use more hands, as you said.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Pascale.